And I did every mistake in the book. You know, I bought off the plan. It was at a new development, and I didn't really read the fine print of the contract, and you know, all of these other things. And you know, these are mistakes that a lot of investors do, and they do them every day. Hi there, Tyrone and listeners. I'm Terry Lollback. I'm a property investor, currently with 15 properties in my portfolio. I'm also currently the chair of PICA, which is the Property Investors Council of Australia, Queensland chapter. But I also work in the disability sector, where I assist people with injuries and long-term disabilities in getting back on their feet and helping them find employment.
Fantastic. It's really interesting to be able to hear that, because there's so many different, I guess, investors I've met and also introduced and, you know, met along the way. And yours is a very, very unique story, especially what you're doing and how much you're giving back. So I'm really, really excited to share that as well with the listeners. So maybe, Terry, tell us a little bit more about, I guess, your day-to-day, maybe say in 60 seconds or less, and just, share what you're currently doing at the moment.
Yeah, so as you can see, or if you can't see, it all depends. I'm in my car, so I'm in my work car at the moment. You know, it is my lunch break, and you know, I've had a number of meetings. But basically, what I do, if it's a Monday to Friday, I do have a 9 to 5, and that is in the disability sector. So I assist, like I said, assist people who are long-term disabled, getting them back on their feet and finding work and employment. It's been a trying time with COVID, but you know, we've been doing pretty well with that. Also, I'm an active investor, so I'm actively investing, and as you'll hear with the story, I'm always on the lookout. So in the evenings, that's where you know, I'll either speak to or respond to emails from the bank, or other things, and with either the conveyances, and yeah, so you know, I guess that's been part of my day. I also am a martial artist too, so I do that every day, and also go to the gym. So that's also been quite an important part of my life. Yeah, I make a point, me and my partner make a point to go out at least once a week. You know, we find that's very important, and yeah, we've just been blessed with how property investing has changed our lives.
That's fantastic. So, Terry, I'm just also curious a little bit more about, I mean, we'll delve into a little bit more, because, you know, you've been an active investor. You know, to build up a portfolio of 15 properties is not a small thing to do, especially, you know, what you're doing as well to help so many people in the disability industry as well. But before we jump into that, let's take a step back and talk a little bit more about sharing your story personally and just getting to know you a little bit. Firstly, share some interesting facts about where you grew up.
Yeah, so I grew up in the Philippines. I was born in the Philippines. My dad's Australian and my mum's from the Philippines. And it's quite interesting, actually. And so I grew up there, but at the age of 2, mum decided to migrate here to Sydney, actually, with dad. But dad was always working fly in, fly out. So he was always in the oil rigs, and you know, and the oil rigs, and you know, or mineral vessels. So he was basically 3 months on, 3 months off. And after about a year of attempting to live here, mum and myself, mum said, look, it's too difficult. We'll head back to the Philippines. And they had properties there, and dad agreed. And he said, yeah, well, that's fine. I like the Philippines, and that's okay. So we moved back to the Philippines. I stayed there until I was 10. So I'm fluent in Filipino because of that. And dad's plan was really to retire there. So they had built up a little bit of a property portfolio there. Like they had a number of properties, and also even a salt farm. Unfortunately, so dad had me fairly late in life. He was 49 when he had me. And he had a blocked artery there, and he had quite substantial medical issues that needed to be addressed in 1990. That, on top of the recession, really hit him quite hard, and he had to sell a number of the assets, and we moved to Australia. So it really, although my life in the Philippines was quite good, I mean, it was fantastic. You know, when we came here, it was quite a different lifestyle, and really that's when I saw my parents struggle. And you know, I mean, Dad did invest, but he wasn't really. For him, it wasn't so much about. I don't know. He just had a different mindset, really, and it was a different thing. As his was more so for, you know, to spend the money and enjoy life for that time.
Yep.
He didn't really think much about the future, and he never did. And you know, he had his reasons to do that, but yeah, it was quite difficult moving back. Moving back to Australia, although I was 3 when I left, so it was difficult, but it was also very good because for me, I love the school system here, and I really enjoyed it compared to the Philippines at the time. There were lots of corporal punishment, and you know, it was just strange. And as you know, Tyrone, like, you know, coming from that Asian background, is that they're very strict with study,
Yes.
study, study. And I studied a bit too, but I also liked sports and I enjoyed hanging out with my friends. And that was not really rewarded well in the Philippines education system. Whereas here it kind of was. And, you know, I went from a child that didn't do so well in the Philippines to a child doing quite well here in Australia. So mum and dad were very happy with that. And yeah, but I grew up in the north side of Brisbane, where I still am here today. Kedron primary schools where I studied at, and I did high school there as well. Then moved up to Pine Rivers in the Moreton Bay region, and yeah, just outside of Brisbane. And yeah, I've been here ever since. But I've also travelled around Australia, which I'll mention a bit later.
That sounds great. Do you remember roughly what age you came to Australia back from the Philippines?
Yeah, so I was 10. I
Oh,
just
okay.
turned 10, and I started grade 5. In fact, because of the way the education system. So from grade 4 to grade 5, I did not get a break. I did not get a summer holiday really. I only had about 2 weeks off when we moved here. Um, I studied pretty much grade 4 to grade 5 nonstop.
Gosh, that must have been really, really challenging.
It was.
So, Terry, it's really exciting to be able to hear. You came back to Australia, you're going through the school system, and obviously, you know, you've stayed around in the Queensland area. Did your parents ever think about coming back to Sydney? Because that's where you initially came from.
Yeah, so that's where Dad's from. So he was from Coogee his entire life. So was my grandfather, and he did. But the only reason why I moved to Brisbane was by that time Dad was based from. He was doing uh, the mining bauxite. So on the ships, it was from Gladstone to Weipa. You know, doing bauxite and other minerals. So they were getting them from Gladstone, transporting them to Weipa, and then, you know, elsewhere. But that's the only reason why we moved to Brisbane, was because Dad's work at the time. It was just more ideal for him to be based out of Brisbane. He worked for the Australian National Liners, and yeah, they did a lot of the mine. They were basically mining vessels. So
Yeah.
he was. When we moved to Australia, Dad's work was now 6 weeks on, 6 weeks off. So, you know, we spent a lot of time with him, but that's the only reason why we did end up moving to Brisbane and not Sydney.
Yeah. And did he continue to work all the way through and stay in Queensland because of that? Or did he have to fly elsewhere into different types of states?
He stayed in Queensland, so he would fly to Gladstone, and then, you know, he would hop on the ship there, and then yeah, that was it. So
Yeah.
Gladstone was really the port of call for him.
So what was it like? Because I've never had a parent, I guess, who was 6 weeks in, 6 weeks out. Did you notice the differences?
Yeah, like it was great when he was around.
Mm.
And when he wasn't, we did have Skype or nothing, but he would call like every night at a certain time, so we'd be on the phone to him all the time. But yeah, it was a very good childhood because when he was home, he was really home. So, you know, he wasn't bogged down with work or other things. But when he was away, you know, Mum basically did everything as well. So she would come to the school days and all of that stuff, and the school was understanding. They knew that Dad was fly in, fly out, and you know, they understood.
Yeah. Were you the only sibling, or did you have other of the young
I've got a
child?
younger brother as well, so
Yeah.
he was a bit younger than me, so he was it would have been tough for him too, but because he came here when he moved here when he was 3, turning 4, yeah, it was a little bit different. So with me, Mum and me would speak in Filipino from time to time. Yeah, but for him it was very different. He really did grow up here, and yeah.
And have you been back to the Philippines since then?
Yes, many times, many times. So I again I've moved around also. So I did through my work. So you know, I've got 10 years of working in the Queensland and South Australian governments, really in marketing and international relations. So during that time, I moved around, and I also when I was in South Australia, I was flying to the Philippines maybe 3-4 times a year. And we do go there a lot. And in fact, I'll talk about it pretty soon. My first foray into investing was a property we still own in the Philippines, and yeah, it's quite a bit of a story to that. So
That's fascinating. Do you have a lot of family still in the Philippines, or have everyone moved to here?
we do. My partner's she's from the Philippines too. So uh, my aunties and that are still there. So one of my cousins is here now. Um, yeah, they're still all in the Philippines, so that's why we enjoy going back there
Yeah.
from time to time. So we do try to go back every year.
Yeah. Which part of the Philippines?
Well, I'm from Mindanao. It's Zamboanga. It's down south.
Oh, okay.
Mm.
I mean, I've got a team in the Philippines as well too, so that's why I know some of the parts. But I've never heard that one. Which part of it down south is it?
It's known as Asia's Latin city. So our the language there is Chavacano, which is a Spanish Creole language.
Ah,
Mm.
it's fascinating. There's just so much to learn, and you guys have such an interesting culture, and that's what I love about, speaking and working with Filipinos as well too.
It is. It is.
Yeah, excellent.
Yeah.
So let's take a little step back then to, I guess, after high school. You've completed your high school. What did you do after that?
After high school, I got a job. So I went to university. So actually, I went to TAFE first.
Mhm.
I wasn't sure about what I wanted to always get into import and exporting. So that was what I wanted to do. I did it through TAFE. So I did a year at TAFE. Actually, I did 18 months at TAFE, but then I decided to go to university. There was no option for me. I needed to go to uni. So I did marketing and international business at university. So I did a year and a half at TAFE, got into second year of university. And after that, I enjoyed uni a lot. So I stayed on to do a master's right afterwards. So I was very lucky that halfway through the master's, I got an internship with the Queensland government.
Oh,
And yeah, I started work there with the Department of Natural Resources and Mines as a project officer in their international relations unit. And then from that, I was with an advisor with Transport and Main Roads, again in their international trade relations unit. So I stayed there for quite a while. I was the acting manager there for a long time, and then I got into the Department of Education.
wow. You've been around the government sector for quite some
Yeah,
time.
and after that, so I decided, I thought I was still quite young then. I was about 27, I think, and I wanted I looked at getting I wanted to do a regional stint. So there was an opportunity that came about at Central Queensland University. So I took it, and I was in charge of their international marketing in Rockhampton, CQU.
Oh,
And
yes.
yeah, so I had the change of branding. My position was created for that change of branding. So I did a lot of that, changing from CQU to CQ University.
I do
Um,
remember seeing that. Yes. That's
yeah, you know, the
amazing.
be what you can be and all of that. So yeah, I did that. So as part of my role, and that was fantastic. Rockhampton was a terrific place, and the team there was also great. I can't say enough good things about them. I moved after that to Adelaide, and because I got a job as the marketing manager for their for TAFE SA, so their international unit.
What did
So
you study at university?
I did international business and marketing.
Ah, okay,
So
that makes sense. That's
that's
why.
why, that's why. And that was great. Again, I love Adelaide. I love the South Australian government. I did a lot during my time there, and also started to look into the regional areas too, which is a big part of my strategy today, because
Mm,
I did travel to a number of regions there, and I saw firsthand, and and then I had to move back. Unfortunately, move back well, it's not unfortunate I moved back, but the circumstances why I moved back were quite unfortunate. My father was about 6 years ago. He was in palliative care, so that was part of the reason why I moved back. And
sorry to
it
hear
was a
that.
difficult time, but Dad had a good run, and yeah.
Yeah. So during that time while you're in Adelaide, I assume that your mum and dad were still located in Queensland still at the same
Yeah,
time, and you'd fly in and fly
I
out just
did.
to.
Yeah, I would fly in a couple of times a year at that time, because my son at that time, I had a divorce with my first wife, and they had moved back to Queensland, and I was also visiting my son at the time, so I did always come back here.
I guess interesting that you've had a lot of experience in different states as well, because I would assume SA and Queensland are completely different type of lifestyles as well. How
It
long
is.
were you in SA for?
I was in SA all up about 3.5 years.
Okay, that would be quite interesting. So maybe just share a little bit more about the story there, and I mean, feel free to share whatever you feel comfortable with, having to move back to Queensland and that the story behind what happened with family, and yeah, I guess where your journey started from there.
Yeah, so I guess I'll probably rewind back to how I first got into property, because I was in SA at the time.
Okay.
So what happened was, me and my partner, we've been together 10 years, and she there was an opportunity for a property. There was property being developed in Davao, and the homes were quite nice, and I was able to buy one quite cheaply, and this was I was on quite a good salary at the time, so I thought, yep, let's buy that. Um, and this was my first foray into it about 8 years ago, and I did every mistake in the book. I bought off the plan. It was at a new development, and I didn't really read the fine print of the contract, and all of these other things, and these are mistakes that a lot of investors do, and they do them every day. Um, and So although I got it quite cheaply, that the building, like, it took them so long to build. They went 3 years over schedule. Um,
Wow.
and there's a lot of red tape in the
Yeah.
Philippines, and
How
all of
long? How long was this actually scheduled for? Actually, completion. How long was the development?
that. 12 months.
Oh, okay.
So
So we're taking a step back. Okay. So how did you end up in the Philippines back here? Because this was your first property that you purchased
this
in
is my
Devel.
first. So I by that time I was divorced. So it was with my partner. So we she comes from they're quite a well-to-do family, and in the Philippines, it is like that. Unfortunately, family ties are important, and it's a very much a class society. So she's from a well-to-do family, and her parents, well, particularly her grandparents and her mum, are uh, they're property investors. They're long-time landowners, and things like that. So this came about, and she said, look, this might be a good investment, and I didn't really look at it as an investment. And this is the thing, is that I just bought it for the sake of, I just bought it. There was no other reason. Um, and it wasn't really looked at as an investment. It was just something that, oh, all right, well, we go back to Davao all the time. We got family here, and it's a nice place. We like to spend time here, that
It's
sort of
more
thing.
like a lifestyle property where you can go in. You got your own place in the Philippines. You don't have to worry about looking for accommodation. You
It
see
was
family all
very
the time.
much, it
Mm.
was very much like that. And the thing is, there's just a lot of red tape. So initially, I didn't put all the money down. So I was making some payments onto it. It wasn't much. It was only about 10,000 that was still needed to be paid off. But the interest rates were huge. It was like, almost 20%.
Wow.
So,
Okay.
and I thought, no, this can't be. So I paid that off, quick, smart. And yeah, and it was just, there was just a lot of mistakes with it. But say I'm glad to say that now um, it's made at least 4 to 5 times what we paid, and
Yeah.
it's been a good investment in that, only because Philippines, there's 100 million people.
Mm.
Land is scarce, and premium houses like that are also very attractive to a lot of the expat Filipinos that do want to purchase homes.
Yeah.
So what was once a lemon has has now become quite a good investment.
Yeah, absolutely. So you mentioned there was about 10,000 Australian dollars. Was that right back then? Equivalent to.
Yeah, I probably, I'd say I didn't pay much for it. In fact, it's made more. So really, I would have paid, I'm trying to calculate the exchange rates. I probably paid about 36,000.
Oh, okay. Yep. So that would have
So,
been roughly about divided by 32 is about 10. Oh no, it'd be about 1,000 something dollars.
no, I paid 32,000 Australian dollars,
Oh, Australian dollars.
36,000 Australian dollars for
Okay.
it.
Okay. Yeah.
So
So
yeah, um,
okay.
it's now worth, last we checked, it's worth about 4.5 to 5 million pesos.
Ah, okay. That's
So
substantial.
yeah,
Yep.
so it's made quite a lot. And in fact, we were offered about 4.5 million for it
Yeah.
from a real estate agent, and we said no, we're not keen on selling.
Okay. So you've kept that obviously for you to go back in and
Yeah,
so is it
we've not.
rented out at the moment or you just
We're tossing up to whether we do that or not. We might put it into Airbnb. It's in quite an attractive location. But at the moment, again, it's this is not really part of my strategy is to have non-performing assets, but it's just one of those things where it's the cost of keeping it is quite low.
yeah.
So we don't have really the rates or anything like that I do here as far as holding cost. So we don't mind because the holding costs are quite low.
Yeah, yeah,
Mm.
excellent. Well, I mean, when you think about it, it's a great lifestyle property. Go back in the Philippines whenever you go. You just hop in and just use it. And as you said, it's sort of like another kind of car that you can just sit in the garage that you can drive whenever you want to.
Yeah, it was weird because I didn't buy it for the sake of investment, but it's
Yeah,
turned out all right. So I'm happy about that.
fantastic. So I guess you've mentioned that you purchased 15 properties. I know we won't be able to go through every single one, but let's just sort of give a quick overview. Whereabouts are these different properties located, and how did you
Yeah,
manage to get to 15?
yeah. So the majority are based in South Australia. So Adelaide, uh, Whyalla, I like a lot. Port Augusta, and those are the three areas there that we have. We also have some in we got 4 in New South Wales, and a couple here in one in Brisbane and another one in Queensland. So I do, as part of the strategy, I in the stage of life where I'm in, or me and my partner are in, for us, cash flow was very important for us. So really, we wanted something that could replace our incomes, um, or at least replace an income, and we've done that, and the thing is, it becomes it becomes quite addictive, and you see that you get one, you get another one, and you keep multiplying, and the COVID time has been quite good for us. It's been really good, and like for example, there was a property there in Port Augusta which I got for, it would be like 40% of the market value.
Mm,
The guy just wanted to sell, and it's been, I had it revalued, and yep, it was 40% of what I paid for. The was 40% of what the actual valuation is now of that property, and I'm just talking about 3 months ago. So and it's a cash cow. It's a duplex that gives out
generational.
a lot. So
That's fantastic. So,
yeah.
I mean, along this line, how long have you been investing? About 8 years, I think you mentioned. That's when you
Yeah,
first.
about 8 years from when it started. Now, I'll go back to that. So about 8 years is when it started, and then what happened was I was given the opportunity. So Mum wanted to retire, so I was given the opportunity to purchase the family home.
Was that in Queensland or is it
in Brisbane?
Oh,
So
okay.
here in Brisbane, and that's my principal place of residence today. So I was given that opportunity, and I bought it off Mum. It allowed her to retire. She's now moved to Bribie Island. It's about 50
Beautiful.
k's away.
Yeah.
It's a nice, very nice place. So she's quite happy there, and it was a win-win situation for both of us. And so even when I purchased that, it didn't really start me off. So I had these two properties, but I never thought that property investment would be something that I would do. And it was kind of almost by accident, really, that how I started. I was doing as I mentioned, I do martial arts, and I'm researching a book that I'm writing on the martial arts style that I do. And one of the past masters was a landowner. So in the Philippines, you with my partner's family and all of that, they're all the same. So I saw this land that was just 80 k's, like it was less than an hour outside of Adelaide, and he wanted a specific amount for it, but I thought I'll lowball the offer. So I thought I'd lowball, like absolute lowball, to the point where I was expecting him to say, some bad words.
Go away, yeah.
Yeah, tell me to go away. And to my surprise, he accepted. He said, "Yep, all right." So I thought, oh okay.
You must
So
have been needing, you must be needing the money.
That's exactly. So I thought, well, this is all right. So now I had a big problem then. I wasn't working. So the period of time where I wasn't working, I thought, geez, what am I going to do? So I thank goodness for South Australia, and I love the state, is because for property investors, you they don't have a 10% minimum deposit. So here I am. I bought this property, and I put a deposit of $200 down.
Oh, that is phenomenal.
So and then I said, look, this is all good. I want a 60-day settlement. So I wanted, and they said, yep, that's fine. He's got to move some stuff out, so no problem. So I thought, oh, all right. So now I've got to find work and see how I can pay for this thing. So and I did a lot. So I, with my contacts, I was able to get work pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And that was good. But now I thought, oh, this is a great property. It can't be. Why is he selling it this cheap? And it was because he bought it years ago, and he didn't really pay much for it, although it had risen phenomenally. Yeah. And I thought, look, I'm going to call the council. So I called Mid-Murray Council there, and I asked them. I said, look, can I subdivide this? I got 200 acres. Can I subdivide? And they said, yes, you can. So he said, you can subdivide it to other acreage. And I thought, bloody hell, I can sell just one lot and recoup my money. So so another thing is I did that, and I got really worried. So I kept calling the conveyancer saying, can he back out of this deal? How can I keep him on? I've got the money now, and how can I keep him on? And she said, well, he's not going to back out. Generally, they won't. And he'd probably be more fearful of you backing out. And I said, oh. So she was asking me why. And I said, well, look, I've got this information, and I've spoken to council. And she's like, don't worry so much. And, the deal went all right. And he was a retiree that just, he was at that stage of life where, again, it was a win-win. Although I got a big win, I think he got what he wanted, and he used the land for what he needed. And it's funny because it's 200 acres that we got there. A neighbouring property that was twice the size was recently listed for 2.5 mil.
Ooh.
And the neighbour, another guy, he's got 4 acres. He recently sold his for 150,000. And I paid for mine less than 100K. So it's been a massive win for us. And this is the thing, is like what I do also, like because of my role with PICA, and we're a not-for-profit, we're investors for investors. I tell people, look, don't overlook land investing also. Like it's something that is done in America a lot, but here in Australia, they land bank, but we don't really do it like how they do it over there.
Yeah.
And I think you're missing out I mean, yes, there is the holding costs and all of that, and it's not producing any money unless you do something with it. But you can come up with some great deals and some great wins by looking outside the box and maybe offering someone something that seeing an opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, you've really thought outside of the square, and when this opportunity comes, you've really gone and done due diligence, and obviously, it's been a huge win for you. And was that like your first property in Australia, or after your first purchase?
I'd bought something else, but this was I bought two at about the same time, like two in similar time. So again, I did that without work. So and then it was reverse engineering almost.
Yeah.
But so I bought another block of land. In a town called St. George, which I also got really for nothing. And again, that we like that too. That was more for my partner, though. She wanted that. So we were happy with that. That is not producing so much. In fact, that one is what I would call as one of my the properties that I don't really want to talk about. But,
well, you may as well talk about it now since we are on that streak. Actually, would you say would that be one of your worst investing properties? Or
I think so because
Right.
see my my partner bought I did too, but she wanted it. She saw the price that was pretty good. I mean, we got it cheaply and it's worth a lot more, and it's something that we just want to keep for a bit. But there's not much you can do with it. Like, you can subdivide it and all of that, but in some of these areas, it's not a good idea. So it was good that I bought that because it taught me a lot. So sometimes you make mistakes through purchases, and like I said, it's not a mistake if you can wear it. And for this, it's neither here nor there for us, and it's just an asset that we have. And
What was it? Some of the factors that didn't make it an outstanding asset. I mean,
Well,
it
it's still
sounds like
good. Look, it's prime land it's a regional town, so it was still prime land. It's 4 blocks, like 4 blocks. I paid next to nothing. I've seen blocks there being sold. One block, sold for double what we paid for this, and ours is a size of 4. So, but again, it's the holding costs, and it's the fact that I'm not using it for anything. And that's something that as an investor, you have to really say, well, look, if you've got an asset that's not performing, do you want to get rid of it, or do you want to keep it? And if you're keeping it, what are your reasons for keeping it? And for this, it's because, well, we will get the money back afterwards, but we want to just keep it to see what we might do with it in the future.
Yeah. So it's more about lost opportunity cost, I guess you can say, because potentially, as you said, if it's not performing and there's not generating any revenue, then you could potentially invest it into something else. So it's the opportunity cost of what.
Exactly. So, the opportunity cost for that is that I could have, and this is what I've told my partner before, is that, hey, we could use that to get a property in a similar area that would be generating us 14%. So that's the thing that would pay itself off.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and then you pocket about 8,000 or so a year out of just that one property.
Yeah.
So that it is that opportunity cost, but at the end of the day, you can't be right all the time. If you're right all the time, geez, I'd have 100 properties by now. You know what I mean? Like, that's the thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So, as you purchased that many properties, I guess at this point in time, do you know roughly what the value of the portfolio is worth at this point?
Yeah, it's I had a rough calculation of it. It's probably about, and with the Commonwealth Bank app that you see, so it's worth about 3.5.
Yeah, and as you said, it's positive cash flow. Like, what kind of
it's positive. So that's the strategy is to get that, and so it's, after all cost and everything, we're making, this is after paying the rates and all of that, it's making us probably about it's over 100 a year, but if you take off some of the other costs, it's cash flow positive, like in the hand, about 70K.
That is phenomenal. I mean, that is really, really good. And it's obviously taking a bit of time to build that up, but you've put some strategies in place to be able to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you've built up a good portfolio size that you can potentially retire on, and it'll continue to grow over time. What do you think has been one of the aha moments over your journey?
I think the aha moment was, I like to always say that that purchase of that big 200-acre block was, but really it was after that too, where I purchased a couple of, I bought two of them. So I bought them in regional New South Wales. It was a town of close to 20,000 people, and this is the thing is for me the aha moment was I guess not listening to naysayers, because yes, growth is very important. We all do it for growth. When someone says they're not doing it for growth, they are doing it. Unless you're investing in Japan, which is a place I go to every year as well, you're doing it for growth.
Yeah.
So, but they'll tell you, look, avoid the regions, don't do this, I don't want to do that. Fair enough, that's fine, that's their strategy, it suits them. But they're people, they're making six-figure incomes, positive cash flow, without a worry in the world, investing in regional areas, which you can get 14, 16, 17, 18% returns, which is phenomenal. And there's no risk, because like I've always said, is that and I'll probably explain a bit more, is you've got to know your market, and being a landlord, you got to know who your potential tenants are, and as long as you understand your market, you'll do fine. It's basic economics, and if the numbers make sense, then do it. But the aha moment was when I realized that, oh wow, we can make good money out of this, and potentially it can replace our incomes. So that was it.
That's fantastic. So Terry, just share with us, and I'm pretty sure a lot of listeners are probably scratching their head going, okay, we're talking about regional towns, and a lot of the listeners on the podcast probably would like to know, how far regional towns would you say you're looking at? Because you've got the main capital cities like Adelaide,
Yeah.
Brisbane's and so forth. How far would you go to and find a property like that?
You go anywhere. My philosophy is you chase deals.
Yeah.
You have to chase the deals, and you got to do whatever it takes. And if the numbers make sense, why wouldn't you pick it up and add it to your portfolio? If it's not doing anything, if it's not affecting you negatively, go ahead. You do have to do proper due diligence. Like, for example, a lot of times people they'll trip over themselves if they might think it's producing good return. But when you think about it, if a particular regional area charging quite high rates, that eats up on your bottom line, and you don't want that. But you should be willing to look at anywhere. You got to look at, for me, the strategy needs to be, you've got to worry about the tenants. So you need to, of course, you got to worry about servicing and your tenants. So those are the two things. There are other things, of course, but these are the two basics. As long as it's a town and a regional town that has industry and has its own, and is quite vibrant in a way that there is a lot of people going in, and there's big hospitals, something like that, which will provide work, it's fine. Another thing is even if it doesn't provide work, and if you know your tenants, you'll be fine. There are good people that live in a lot of regional areas that need accommodation, and you're not going to. It just depends. Like, you can't envision one thing in mind. Like, if you envision the eastern states, like the three, Brisbane, Sydney, Melbourne, and then you look at the regions, then it's not going to work for you. But if you just look at the numbers, regional towns can be good. And when really, when people say, oh no, your growth isn't going to be good, then you manufacture growth. You use your negotiating skills to get in low, and then you've got your growth automatically. You've already built up equity just from that. And I've been able to multiply my portfolio just doing that exactly. And if I'd listened to they're great investors, and I've got a lot of respect for them, but a strategy has to be personal. I mean, it's got to be based on what you have and what you want. Um, if I was to listen to someone that would say, "Oh no, don't don't invest in, that's too far," or "There's only 15,000 people. What are you doing? You're not going to get any growth," then I'd probably not do anything. I might have 2 or 3 properties here in a capital city, but that would be it. So it all depends. It's just what you want, and it's based on where you are in life and where you want to go. That's how I look at it. But certainly do not disregard that, and really, do the maths. And if it works out for you, then go for it.
Yeah, totally. So what I'm really curious about is this portfolio that you've built up. To purchase 15 properties requires a bit of skill. You've got to understand a little bit of financing, you've got to understand where to look for the properties, you've got to structure it correctly and so forth. I'm only making an assumption here, and this is why I would like for you to clarify. Was one property that you purchased another property to create equity, so that way you can leapfrog to the next one, leapfrog?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So that's sort of part of the strategy.
Yeah.
And
so this is, I'll explain that a bit. So a lot of the equity that started off was with the principal place of residence. So we had done some renovations and all of that, and I bought it for a good deal because I did buy it off family, and that gave us a little bit of equity. So then we were able to multiply a little bit that way. However, that all soon stops. So you need to keep building that. As we all know, you've got to get some other properties that are going to build you some equity. And this is the thing, is that when people say, well, you can't buy in the region that are not going to build you equity. Yes, you can, but you need to negotiate well. This is where skill, I think, comes out, is that you need to negotiate well. You need to know the area, and you need to, there's going to be some distressed sellers, of course, and there's going to be people that just want to sell and go elsewhere, whatever their reasons might be. But if you buy well, you can build enough equity to duplicate again. So this is the thing. You don't have to sometimes wait for growth. You can manufacture it. And one of the best ways is I think, to buy well. And it is rare. I mean, it's, you can only buy it from whatever the seller wants to sell it. If they don't want to sell, you can't buy it. So that's the thing. And you can do your renovations and all that too, but there are certainly opportunities. And if you can negotiate well with a property, you're already winning from the start.
Yeah, and that's crucial too. And I think that's what everyone understands, or most investors would have to understand, is that in order to be able to get a good property, you've got to actually think of the end goal in mind, because, it's usually buying well, helps you, because there's no point buying a property and praying and hoping they'll go up, because you don't know when that's going to happen. But it's really right at the beginning, when your entry point is where you're going to be able to make your money.
Yeah. And you're right, Tyrone. And the thing is that, I mean, my passion, how I was into share trading, that was my passion at uni, and it still is. And sometimes we speculate. We speculate with shares, and you do that. You do it, but it's without proper research. That's all it is. It's speculating, and that's the thing with property. I mean, to me, it's almost quite foolish to just think it's going to keep replicating and because of past trends, but it will, but it's still kind of speculating. So this is where you've got to negotiate. You've got to try to get it. It's got to be on your terms, and this is where it can be good to try put some of these strategies into practice. Next time you're purchasing a house, negotiate, or go to an area where there isn't so many buyers, and then you can negotiate even a bit better.
Very smart strategy there. Excellent. The other thing you mentioned, renovations, I guess maybe towards sort of subdivision, development, that kind of things. Have you done many of those on the properties that you purchased?
We've done renovations, subdividing it, or for example, this one at Port Augusta, it was actually, it caused a bit of when we bought it, it was a duplex, but it was only it was like 2,000 square meters. So it was quite big land. And the previous owner had subdivided the back part, so to build another place. And I thought, well, I don't mind, I'll buy it that way. But they had actually done a re-amalgamation of it. So I would only be paying for the one title, or 2 titles instead of 3. So that's certainly something for future for that. But we've done renovations for that same place. We renovated one of the other units, and that was the one which I ended up. Well, I haven't used it yet, but I had it revalued by the bank, and it was like I paid 110, and they revalued it at 235.
Wow, that's very, very good.
And there's your duplication. You can buy another one.
Yeah, yeah,
So
absolutely.
and that all came out of negotiating well.
It's phenomenal to be able to hear that, because I think that's what I think investors would like to probably understand is, you know, as you said, negotiate well, but you got to be able to pick the right deals and then find the ones that actually have, and think outside of this box, just like what you've been doing as well. So Terry, what I wouldn't mind jumping into a little bit more is just to understand a little bit more about, I guess the next thing is your mindset. You know, if we jump into that and think, what is it that you're actually doing? What's been the biggest why? Because I think you've already suggested that the reason why you've been purchasing these properties and building a portfolio is to generate passive income. But behind it, what is that actually that you want to achieve?
Well, the mindset, like for me, it was, I guess it was financial freedom, but it's having that never giving up. Like for example, the reason why I got into it, although I had a good career before, is that and I enjoyed that, but with a lot of stress in the workplace these days, and sometimes you got to take a break, and you know, which is unfortunate, especially if you might even be doing something you love, but at the end of the day, you can be expendable, and this is the thing, and for me, I didn't want that anymore. I wanted to, you know, have the option of having money there, passive income there that was coming through, and you know, start enjoying the nicer things in life without the stress of, you know, not knowing that it might be there or may not if you're not working. Yeah.
Yeah. And you mentioned that because what you currently do in your 9 to 5, you're also helping a lot of people in the disability and so forth. And plus your chair of PICA as well too. Would you mind sharing a little bit more about that? I actually would like to know a little bit how that, you know, has led you on to your journey, because you've been involved in quite a number of things.
Yeah, so with PICA, like for example, I as I got into property investing, I wanted to learn from others as well. So I don't really like spruikers. You know, there's a lot in the industry that are spruikers, unfortunately, and you know, it's ironic because sometimes the spruikers are actually pretty good, but they still spruik. So you know, you got to watch out. You know, but so I wanted to I looked into PICA, and it was a not-for-profit. It was property investors for property investors. They'll lobby the government. So I joined, and you know, I was studying. I was doing some study and work at the time, and I had a bit of time, and I thought, look, I want to give back, and I joined PICA, and yeah, I was part of the group here in Queensland, and then an opportunity came to become chair, and which I took, and we successfully lobbied against some of the proposed government rental reforms here in Queensland. So, you know, PICA played a big part, and a number of the property investors here played a very big part in getting the state government to reverse those proposed laws, which were very unfair for property investors.
What kind of laws, for example? Just an example.
Like for example, you know, certain tenancy sort of agreements, and allowing people to break the tenancy, and they're trying to utilize things like domestic violence and all of these. Although we're against that as well, but we just wanted it had to be fair. It just couldn't benefit the tenant without so much the property investor as well, because as you know, many property investors, you know, might only have 1 or 2 properties that are just doing it to try to change their lifestyle a little bit, and they're new to the game, and something like this could have would have been disastrous, really.
Yeah, totally. And that's the thing. Without tenants in our property, then there's no passive income that comes in through that. So it's very important that the government, and I guess us lobbyists, to be able to, you know, work out the best situation for everyone, make it work. Have you delved into anything in regards to affordable housing? Because that's also a big area that has come up, you know, more in the recent years.
Yeah, certainly. Oh, it's funny because I've got a number of properties in outback New South Wales, in Broken Hill actually, and one of my tenants are they're a group called Compass. So they're a affordable housing type group, and they're great tenants. We've got no trouble with them, but yeah, certainly there's a number of investors here that do look into that, and yeah, it's again a win-win.
Yeah. And NDIS, do you know much about and
Yeah.
involved in that in terms
Yeah,
of
so
property investors?
we're looking to do some investments with some NDISA housing actually, which can be good returns. Yeah, so it's funny you mentioned that. I just had a long meeting with someone yesterday about it. So it might be a joint venture that I do pretty soon, but maybe that's for another podcast.
That sounds like an interesting one. Yeah, I noticed that as well. Fantastic. All right, well, let's jump into a little bit more about, I guess, resources and so forth. Because as you said, you've had the fortunate opportunity to be able to purchase many properties, and you've learned along the way as well through the experience. Were there any particular mentors or specific resources that you reached out during your journey?
Yeah, there was. I mean, I'm a book collector, so I collect a lot of books, about martial arts and property investing and investing. So I really like the older books. There's a book by William Nickerson, written in the 1950s about. It's written for an American market, but for mindset and everything, it's beautiful. And sometimes and that's about property investing. And I think it's one of the older books on property investment. And sometimes it's good to read a lot of old texts. And because another thing is, and what I guess for the listeners, what you got to watch out for these days is that a lot of books that come out, particularly if it's a buyer's agent or whatnot releasing them, yes, there's some good information there. There is, but it's almost like a business card for them as well. So,
Yes.
they don't quite, it's not like the old books where it's got everything on there.
Yeah.
So, that's something to watch out for, but certainly look, there's a lot of good books there, Ben Kingsley's stuff, he's got some good stuff there on property investment for an Australian market. Of course, Jan Summers, who you've had on, Margaret Lomas, all of them. Yep. We can learn a lot from those. But yeah, certainly, I think other than I do have a lot of property investment books. It's really important to do that, to read up. But another thing that I think is missing on a lot of them is strategy. So I read up a lot of strategic books, really. And as a youngster, I used to love the Book of Five Rings, yes. And with Miyamoto Musashi, or The Art of War. Yeah. Things like that give you that good mindset of not giving up and really looking, because really the start, like it's negotiating. If you put in your offer, there's a story that I want to mention, and before we go, it's the most recent property that we bought, and it's another duplex in Whyalla, and I made an offer for that about 5 months ago, and it settles this week. So it's this week we get it, and so 5 months ago the guy said no to my offer, and I thought, all right, fair enough, and I kind of left it at that, and I ended up during that time, we purchased 3 other places, and I got back. I thought, look, this is a good deal. So I made another offer to him, and he kind of he took it, but I knew what he was kind of after, but it made him feel like he had a win, because. And this is the thing sometimes, and he did. He got it for a good deal, but I also got it for a great deal, because I looked at the actual value and look at other recent sales, and I still got it for a fantastic deal. And the valuation that I had another independent value, and I paid what is about 80,000 less than what the valuation is. Wow. So I couldn't steal it from the guy, but I still I still got a very good deal out of it, and he felt that he got an excellent deal. And that's the thing. Sometimes, yes, we do want to get the best deal all the time, but remember, yes, negotiating is about win-win outcomes, I think. And you've got to be humble about that, and you'll be rewarded somewhat. And sometimes you can. put in that a little bit extra and you're still getting a fantastic deal. I'm getting 15% return out of this. So, you know, two tenants, two long-term tenants. And so it's a win-win.
Absolutely. Plus you got uplift of 80K as well too, instantly.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. That's always nice.
That's an excellent deal. Fantastic. All right. Well, just, I guess, talking through more about the mindset is, what do you think you've ever received?
Oh, the best advice I've ever received would be from my master. So I'm a martial artist since I was young, and my boys, I treat him as my grandfather, Carlos Navarro. He passed away now, but he told me, "Don't give up, son." And that's what he said. He says, your mindset and everything, you've got it. He goes, you're very strong in that. And really just thinking of those words sometimes, you know, during times when I've been wanting to give up, it's just that thing of not giving up. That's been probably the best advice that I've received, because, you know, and also another thing which he said is always be a sponge for learning. Like, don't ever think you know enough that you can't learn. And I tell that to a lot of my students, is that don't be scared to put on that white belt again, you know, in martial art analogy, is that you've got to do it, because sometimes it may not be someone who invests in property at all. It may be someone who's really not done much, but they might tell you one thing that just awakens you, and you're like, wow, okay.
Yeah, that's great. Now, if you were able to go back in time and meet yourself, say, 10 years ago, what do you think you would have said to him?
I think, and I thought a lot about this, and really, I mean, from a financial point of view, I'm pretty happy to where I'm at now, and I'm happy with that. But it's more like for career advice and other things like that, is that sometimes when we're younger, we're overly ambitious, and unfortunately, I never had, and I would have liked the advice for someone to give me of saying, "Yep, you're doing fine, just stay." You know, sometimes you think that you're not doing well enough, so you try, but sometimes you just want to hear someone say, "No, you're doing pretty good," you know, and just to stay put. And I think that would be, you know, sometimes that can be the best advice that someone gives, you know.
Yeah, I think every you know, young person, even adults, would like that kind of encouragement and advice too, because, you know, sometimes you don't even know if you're on the right journey as well, because you keep going and going, and then you don't see that end result until, you know, many years later, or many, you know, a lifetime, literally, sometimes, especially when you know, going out through rough as well. So
Exactly. Yeah.
appreciate that. Yeah, that's really good. So let's take it forward then in the future. In 5 years' time, where do you see yourself at, and what do you think you're most excited about?
Well, we're continuing to grow the portfolio. Like the last year, we've been busy. So since December, we've purchased 7 properties.
Wow.
One of it, so we've been quite busy, and what I tell people out there is there are deals out there. So if you chase the deals, you'll be amazed. And the industry is big enough for everyone, really. You know, so we want to keep, you know, we certainly want to keep growing it. We want to pay down some of it as well. I do have acreage there in New South Wales, northern New South Wales. We plan to have a persimmon. You know those persimmon fruits?
Oh, yes.
So, I plan to grow a persimmon farm there. So you know, that's something that I want to do.
That sounds very, very exciting. You'll have to let me know how that goes. I've
I
never done that
will. I
before,
will
but
for sure. I will.
excellent. So, Terry, how much of your success do you think is based on your skill, intelligence, and hard work, and how much of it do you think is based on luck?
I think skill, intelligence, and hard work definitely play a big part, and also being, you know, being hit down sometimes. Sometimes when you know, things don't work out for us, and if you can use that to help yourself move forward, that's a great motivator. So I think a lot of it has been, you know, skill and hard work, and certainly knowing and being that sponge, you know, learning from people. But don't just take everything face value. I mean, like I said, if I heard, you know, the advice of these fantastic investors, and you know, they're great, but when they say, "Oh no, don't invest in regions," no. I think what they mean is don't overpay in regions. That's that's the advice I want to give people: is don't overpay. If you overpay, you'll do what some of these unfortunate people who are winning bloody awards, and sorry for the language, but winning awards, who are winning awards when they were horrendously overpaying in regional areas. And that's something all they had to do was really do some research on neighboring towns that were not in that catchment, and they would have thought, oh wow, I've paid 350 or 500,000 for a property that in a neighboring town is only worth 90,000. You know, if we overpay, that's the problem. But I think if you're not overpaying, you'll be all right.
Yeah, and that's the key thing I learned is negotiate. Make sure that when you do go in, negotiate, do due diligence, and make sure that you are getting it at a very, very good price, you know, to be able to, you know, there's motivated sellers out there. And if they are motivated, then, you know, you'll get a good deal as well.
Exactly. 100%.
Fantastic. Well, Terry, it's been a real pleasure to have you onto our podcast today. Very, very excited that you've shared your story as well too with us. If listeners want to reach out to you and find out more about your journey, have a chat to you, you know, find out more about what you're planning to do in the future, what's the best way they can reach you?
The best way would be through Facebook. Just you know, Terry Lollback. I think there's really only me. So you know, I'm pretty easy to find. Yeah, Terry Lollback, or go to the PICA Facebook. So if you go to PICA, PICA, or Property Investors, that on Facebook there. Or another thing is the PICA website. You know, membership is only $5. It's that's you know, that's where you can find me.
Yeah, that's a minimal cost to be able to connect with you anyway.
Yeah, minimal cost. Yeah, it goes back in. It just goes back into it's a not-for-profit. It just goes back into to what we do.
That's great. And thank you so much for what you're doing as well out there to help all the people that you're working with as well in your job as well. So yeah, thank you so much for coming on. It's been a real pleasure to share your story, and I really, really appreciate that you reached out to us.
Thanks, Tyrone. Thank you so much. Bye.